Oh, I got crooked. Alright. Of course, I'm using this Galca to speed up this drying time. This shelf is like a plastic, I don't know what you even call it. It's a really cheap shelf. So the paint doesn't want to dry, and it's been on here for a long time, like a couple of months. So I'm going to use this Galca in hopes of making it dry faster. And I've got just a little bit of it in a container, and I'm just dipping my brush in there, just like that. Fill my brush full of it, and then dip it in the paint. That way, if there's any leftover paint, it doesn't dry out on me. And then I just take my paint and get it all good and mixed up like that on my palette. Hopefully, this will fix the issue of it not drying, because it should be dry to the touch. It's been on here for like 3 months. And this is like the final layers anyway, so but it being wet to the touch for 3 months is not cool, and we got to speed this up. Nobody wants to wait 3 months for their piece of furniture to come back. And as long as it's dry to the touch, I can go on and varnish it with the Danvar varnish, you know. And this should actually last until the shelf falls apart. Like once it's sealed, this painting is not going to go anywhere, even if you set something on top of it. I normally would do this on a TikTok live, but TikTok doesn't like these kind of paintings, so I think I'm just going to transition over here to YouTube. Can I mod you? Oh, you sub? Wow. Yes, I did that. I actually did. This has been sitting in this room trying to dry for about 3 months. So, and it's not drying. So I'm going to put a little bit of layer of this Galkid with some paint over the areas that aren't drying properly. Which, you know, in the painting, this is like a real fucked up wall anyway. And I guess it's going to add to the character and make it look a little old. But mostly what I'm doing here is just trying to make the spots dry that don't want to dry and fix a little bit of this I still need to fix his knee. So that's what I'm doing here real quick. I have an hour, so I'm going to try to get done what I can get done. Yes, sir, I did do this. Ma'am, whoever, sorry. I don't want to assume your gender. I know that's that's not polite these days. Yeah, oil, that's why a lot of people don't like to oil paint. But if you use this gal kit, your oil painting should dry within like 24 hours, dry to the touch. And just to tell you a little bit about oil painting, your paint doesn't dry per se, it cures over time. Like it could be dry to the touch, but all those layers underneath are certainly not dry. And usually, if you varnish too soon, your painting will crack after a couple of years or sometimes more. But all right, we're gonna fix this blue right here. Let me clean my brush out. And I apologize if I miss your questions. I'll go back and look in just a second. And this is more or less like what do they call this? A glaze. When you use that medium, it's going to make even paint that's not transparent more transparent. So this is how you get the depth and the layering effects in a lot of oil paintings, is layers and layers of glaze. So we're doing double duty and we're going to fix two problems here. We're going to enhance the painting while helping it dry faster. I technically should have a bigger brush. I'm helping my sister-in-law out here in a little while. I'm going to have my nephew over. So I only have a little bit of time to fix this today. But I hope you'll stay with me until I have to go. No problem. And I have a lot of painting tips and tricks I'm going to be sharing in different videos and lives. If you join me on my lives, I'll give you all the tips and tricks that I personally know. And I'm just using a disposable palette from the Dollar Tree. And I keep dipping my brush in this container that has my gal kit in it. Because if you mix it with all your paint, it's going to dry. And before I can finish it, it'll be dry. I need a couple of days to work on something. Dip it in that, and then dip it in your paint, just like that. And you can tell on this board, if you can see your white board underneath, that's transparent. And that's why you'll get a glass palette that is gray on the bottom, so you can get the true tone of your paint there. But this spot right here is the spot that is messed up. You probably can't see it real well in there. Let me bring you in. It's right here. That's what I'm about to work on. I apologize, my tripod is a little janky. Man. Well, that's the best I got. Alright, I'm going to clean my brush out. Do a little bit of this lighter color. Oh my gosh, there's a cat outside. Sounds like it's dying. I'm guessing it's in heat. Alright. I'm just going to take some white and add it straight to that paint to make it even lighter. Because I'm going to try to make this the last layer of paint and get it as close as I can to how I want it right now. Oil paint is so much easier to blend than acrylic paint. And if you're a beginner, I'm telling you, I think it's best to start with oil paint because you have so much longer to work with it and figure out what the hell you're doing before it dries. If you know what I'm saying. Alright, now I need a little bit of darker color. Go back and fill some of these areas in. Because you really need about 3 layers of oil paint before you have a finished painting. And, you know, then it's going to look more like how you want it to. It goes through some ugly stages and it's real hard to get past it in your mind that it's going to look better. But that's where you trust the process and just continue doing what you're supposed to be doing there. Trust the process. I know it's hard. And working from light to dark with your glazes will help give you a lot of control. Because once you put a dark glaze on there, trying to lighten it up is very frustrating. Alright, you get the gist there. There's some darks and lights in there. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I know that's sucks to watch. Alright, I fixed it. Now you can see what I'm doing. Alright, let's fix his knee real quick. And I'll show you how to mix up some skin color really easily. Literally, just burnt umber. A tiny little bit of Naples yellow. And a whole lot of white. That's got some blue in it. And depending on the tone of skin you're going for there, you can add a little red in there to rosy it up. Or you can add just a tiny little bit of green to neutral it out. And if you want a shadow, burnt umber is great for shadows. You can mix just a little tiny bit of blue or green in there to cool it down and make it even more intense shadow color. But there you go. That's pretty close to my skin. It's a little, lighter, but for what we're doing here, it's going to work perfect. And I'm going to be working on the doobie knee right there. And this is one of my favorite brushes, and I left it in paint thinner for too long, and it almost disintegrated some of the fibers there. It's a synthetic brush. You can buy these one by one at Michael's. They're great. More Galkit. My container's a little contaminated with paint, so I put it right here in the lid, dip my brush in it, and then I'm going to use the leftovers on this palette knife right here to start working on the knee. It's naturally a little darker down here, so we're going to put this darker color here. And this is a glaze too, by the way. And we're just doing this quickly. We got all the fine details already in there, so this is just a quick glaze of color. It's transparent, so you're going to be able to see just about everything underneath. I'm going to go back and put a highlight on that knee, but I'm going to leave it like that for now. Make that connect a little more. Get up in that crack. The edges are important. Don't forget about the edges. And again, this is another layer just to give it some more depth and real as I could get anyway. And if you're thinking about starting to paint, I suggest you just do it. There's a lot of great painting coaches here on YouTube, actually. One of them's name is Paint Coach. That's who I learned a lot of my technique from. You don't have to pay for a class to learn how to paint, but it would be helpful. But as a whole, I guess I'm happy with it. Hopefully it dries now. Let's do a little bit of the shadow here. Deepen that up a little bit, because that looks like crap. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them the best I can. But, you know, I just started learning to paint about 5 years ago myself. And when I tell you anybody can paint, I'm not joking, because I could not draw a stick figure. So, all it takes is a little dedication and practice, and you can paint too. I'm going to blend this area. Needs a little more definition there. Transition color would help. I'm mixing a little bit of that skin color I used with some of this shadow color to get a transition color. It'll just help blend this line out and make it not look as harsh. And you can always go back and take some paint off if you need to. That's always an option. Just wiping that crap right back off. Now we're going to let that dry for a couple days and see what happens. And we're going to work on this other painting. And clean my brush out. Show you the next work of art. And that's what we're going to be working on next. Let me bring this down a little bit so you can see better. I figured y'all could finish up my tasks with me. I started this one a couple months ago. Needs to be finished. I think it's the last one I have that's truly this unfinished. Alright, give me 1 second while I clean out my brush. Thank you for joining. How you doing this Sunday afternoon? Have you had your lunch? Can you stay a while? Give me 1 second while I clean my brush out and get ready for this new painting. I can't play any music because I play my music from YouTube, but I'm live on YouTube, so I don't have no music. Really? Yeah. All right. All right, in honor of this painting, it's time. Thank you for staying with me. I need this chronic break. Please excuse my dirty rig. I done hit the same dab 3 times. the paint thinner. Alright, let's not with the paint thinner. Whoa, what was that? There's something popping and cracking. I don't know what that was. And this is just straight paint, no medium. Just oil paint. Winsor & Newton. I like to use Winsor & Newton Winton. That is the best quality paint I can afford, personally. I would love to use Gamblin, but I just, that shit is expensive. And until I start selling paintings or whatever may come, I can't afford to do that. Oh my gosh, the neighbor, her dog walks her, she don't walk the dog. Alright, gotta get a smaller brush here. Wow, I don't have a little tiny brush. Yeah, here we go. I'm gonna work on her hand to get the shadows in there. Excuse me. And I am actually going to use a little bit of Galkit in that, because his hand is quite dark. And I just kind of need to thin this paint out without using paint thinner. And I'm pretty sure, like, I messed this finger up right here. Oh no, that's your thumb back there. But I don't have the picture right in front of me to fix it at the moment, so I'm just going to do what I can. The parts that are super bothering me is what I'm about to fix here. Hands, I have to say, are the hardest thing for me personally to paint. I can paint a face all day long, but man, get to their hands. And that's where the trouble sets in for me. And I gotta be looking at a picture, man. So I'm just gonna get these basic tones down the same. So this will make it easier to go back and put in detail later. And getting the value of your colors, like the lightness and the darkness of a color, really is what makes a great painting. That and the edges. It, your values are way more important than your color choice. And what you think a color is to your eyes is hardly ever the case in real life. Something that looks green to your eyes, when you go to paint it, you're like, wow, this is actually yellow. Or, something like that. And when you're doing a portrait, getting things the distance away from each other, you can make it really look like somebody. Even if, their features aren't exact. If they're the right distance, like the nose is the right distance away from the eyes and the mouth is the right distance away from the nose, that's how you make it really look like somebody. And you basically need about 2 or 3 layers at least for an oil painting to be complete. I'm just working on this first layer at the moment. I hope you'll come back and join me for the next two, because she will really get interesting after this. And this is some good quality, really cheap paper that I got. It's not cheap paper per se. It's $20 or so for a whole book of paper that you can oil paint on when you're wanting to practice and don't want to spend all that money on canvases that you're most likely not going to ever do anything with. Like, you know, you're not going to sell them because it looks like crap because you're just learning. This is one of the cheapest, most economical, most high quality ways that I have found to practice on. Hang on, I'll show you exactly what to get. If you're interested, let me know in the comments. I think the name of it is Canon. It's Canon paper, I want to say. It's really good quality, though. And when you're doing this first layer, put the shadows where the shadows go, the lighter areas where the lighter areas go, and do not focus on your details. I know it's hard. Believe me, I know it's hard. But your painting in the end will really pay off if you can hold off until the very end. And I'm trying to put a little bit of a shadow around her nose so that it stands out more and looks like her face is turned. And at the same time, I can clean up my lines from the last layer of paint. And you can do that with each layer of paint, and you're perfecting your painting and basically carving the face out as you go along. And you definitely want to work on the painting as a whole. Like, I know you'll see some artists work in one area and finish their eyes first, and then their nose first, and then their mouth. And it's a whole complete painting by the time they get to the bottom. Well, that might be okay for some people. But if you're just learning, that is not the way you should do things, in my experience. Of course, do whatever works for you. If you're comfortable with that, whatever. But if you're trying to learn how to do things an easier way without being frustrated, this definitely works a whole lot better. You naturally have a shadow under your mouth. With my background being what it is, and there's going to be some funny looking places underneath of her, of course, but you get the gist here. And the more you paint, the more you'll get the feel of what you're doing, and it'll feel more natural to you. At first, you'll be looking at every little detail, wanting to know, how'd they do that? How do I get this color? How do I do that effect? Well, you just got to play with stuff and find what works for you, really. I mean, learning from somebody else is great to learn the basics, but then you kind of got to let go of that at some point and find your own style and find what works for you. Because what works for you is not going to be what works for me, most likely. But I appreciate you being here and following me along my journey. And if you stay with me long enough, hopefully you'll see my paintings progress get more intense and complicated and take longer to complete. I have a lot more freedom to show you things on YouTube than I do on TikTok, so I'll probably be showing my more interesting paintings like smoking, and I think they'll let me show nudes on YouTube, and they won't let me show those on TikTok, and that's like the majority of what I've been doing. I do a lot of faces. I had to get some more paint here. I'm mixing paint while I'm talking. But I do a lot of faces, portraits, abstract portraits, not so much portraits, like realism. I don't know. I mean, it's cool and all, and people can paint things that look exactly like a photograph, and it blows my mind. But that ain't for me. That would be one way to make me hate myself, because I would never be able to make it look as good as some of these people do. Some people just have a natural talent, you know. I had to learn everything I know. And with oil paint, it's really easy to blend. You can go back with a dry brush and blend out what you did, make it look better, fix a mistake, all that good stuff. It's so much easier to do with oil paint than with acrylic. And this is like a semi-dry brush I just kind of washed out, but I want to blend that line a little bit, make it softer. And depending on where your light source is coming from, that's going to dictate, you know, where your lights and shadows are. Her light source is coming from above, so all the shadows are coming like from her hair and her face, because the sun's above her shining down and everything. So this up here that I haven't painted yet is going to be, you know, more of a lighter part of her hair than down here, and that's why I have left it blank, so I can go back and make that lighter, if that makes sense. And I normally wouldn't even paint over a white background, but I just wanted to paint something. You usually want to tone your paper, but toning this paper is not always a great idea. I have some paintings that I did. I toned the background and used a lot of paint thinner and stuff like this. That's easy to do because you got a real thin layer. And there's another one. I'll put these right here so maybe y'all can see them. Alright, back to what I'm doing. And you can make your initial shade, and when you make any shade, make it the darkest shade that you want to work with. That way all you have to do is add white in there to make your lighter shades in between that shade. Like you know, color mixing is a whole thing, and don't concentrate on that when you're learning to paint. That's why buying pre-mixed paint tubes is a good idea when you're just starting out. So you can concentrate on your technique and not so much mixing colors and all that because it can get very confusing very fast. All right, we got most of the shadows on her face. Let's do under this nostril here. Let's see, her face is going this way, so that's gonna go that way a little bit. And we'll come back in with the light and lighten up around her lips. And this goes around her mouth. And then if you got a little too far out, you can always fix it like this. And bam, you can see where the lighter colors go right there. I can't stress enough how important it is to simplify, simplify, simplify. It will make your life so much easier when you're trying to paint anything. And we'll go back and blend this in a second. Now I'm running out of color. Let me mix a little bit more with my brush there. And just like that, we have almost built a face out in no time flat. Do you see where we're going there? You can kind of see how she's going to turn out already. Nice. Yeah, that's not light enough.